Now that I'm live on YouTube. Now. One sec, almost there.
Okay.
Why isn't that going? Oh, come on, I got this right before. Boom, post. Oh wait, that might have done it. Hey, Ivy, be my guinea pig. Go on YouTube and make sure, yep, there it is. When you click on that link, it works.
Yeah.
Yay, life is good. Good afternoon, everybody. This is George Veitengruber from Veitengruber Law. I am coming to you live from Veitengruber Law headquarters in the bunker. I am sitting here with Linda Keenan, and Linda Keenan is the Chief Development Officer for Preferred Behavioral Health Group. She's been a preferred for 3 years, and before that, she was the Director of Development for the FoodBank for 8 years, which means she has a ton of knowledge that she can share with us today regarding the logistics of A, operating a food bank, and B, working on your mental health and well-being in a pandemic. Just like everybody else, 8 weeks ago, Linda got ripped from her office along with 450 other workers that had to go off-site and still take care of the well-being for about 30,000 clients. So I thought Linda would be a great person to talk to, and I'm so excited that she could join us today. Linda, thank you for coming. It's great to see you.
Well, thank you, George. It's really a pleasure to be here, and good afternoon, everyone.
So Linda, we have had a lot of people panicking. Obviously, the degree of panic has gone through almost the stages of grieving, where people went from shock, awe, confusion. It sounded like a joke when we were talking about this 3 months ago, to all of a sudden we're off site and we don't know what's going on. And then we're off site for longer and we think that we shouldn't be anymore. And now people are freaking out because they still don't feel like there's a plan in place. All of that anxiety seems like something that's right in the wheelhouse for what your group does. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then we can get into the meat of it.
Sure. First, I'd just like to share some statistics with you from the National Association of Mental Illness. And please remember, these statistics were before we were in the pandemic situation and before the high levels of anxiety. And basically, about 1 in 5 adults do have mental illness issues. And 1 in 6 children also suffer from mental illness challenges. So that's why, again, pre-pandemic, we were supporting over 30,000 individuals throughout Monmouth and Ocean counties who were experiencing challenges of mental illness, addiction, and substance use. We are the premier nonprofit agency for behavioral health. We have 15 locations, and we help these individuals. We assist, support, treat, and we do that through over 70 specialized programs, whether they're individual programs, group programs, counseling, and we take it because mental illness and addiction does not discriminate. It really goes across every nationality, every gender, every socioeconomic group. So we make sure that we have programs to help people from basic counseling all the way to critical care. We have a critical team that's on the road 24/7, 365 days a year, as well as we have group homes. So we really provide all levels of support and treatment for people who are experiencing some challenges in their life. Now,
Yeah, exactly. So now that this is going on, this has created a whole new magnified challenge. And how have you guys been up to the task of addressing that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, these people now are experiencing isolation, despair. It's intensifying some of their underlying mental illness issues. So what we had to do immediately was that we adopted a new business model. We had to stay connected to these people who really depend on us for services. So we went from, in-person counseling to really working with telehealth and telepsych applications. And we made sure that all of the people we are treating had access to be able to stay connected with us. In addition to the video with telehealth and telepsych, we're making follow-up calls. We're checking on basic human needs. Some of these people, all of a sudden, not only did they need counseling for their mental illness, but they needed basic human needs such as food. So we made sure they had food. We have really reached out to all of the people we've been treating. And at the same time, we have seen an increase in the number of people who have come forward that also now need some support at some level.
So one of the interesting things you had told me when we talked offline about this was that there are actually some people where this new tool of doing everything from a virtual platform might actually be more beneficial to some of the people that had their own anxieties about coming in and attending those meetings, that now, because it's video, it almost became more convenient.
It's very interesting. We have seen that happen, especially with substance use. We have different group counseling sessions. Some people attend those sessions because it's court mandated. Other people attend those sessions because it's part of the program. And we found two things. Number one, the level of attendance has increased. So we're getting more people participating in the sessions, but more than that, we're hearing from more of those individuals on the calls. And for whatever reason, maybe it's less intimidating, maybe they are experiencing this escalated concern about relapsing. But we found that not only is it working as we had planned, it's even working better than we planned.
We'll actually rewind and let's go back to mid-March.
Yes.
And all of a sudden the announcement that we're going to go offline. I know you had told me that everybody's still working, but go into the logistical exercise of how you get 450 staff at 15 different locations to transition into a model that didn't exist.
Well, it wasn't easy, but we did it very quickly. And I'm so proud of the people in our organization, and I'm so proud of our organization. We have an extremely dedicated and compassionate staff. And because of the level of commitment to our clients, we were able to make the transition very quickly. But it did require equipment. We had to make sure that everyone was equipped with laptops. It did require communication. We started communicating even before we had the stay-at-home order from the governor. we made sure that our clients and our staff knew that we were being proactive and taking steps to make sure that we were ready before the stay-at-home order, and we're going to be ready after the stay-at-home order. And we had actually a team of people who put together all of the details of what we were going to do if we had stay at home. Now, I think all of us have become experts in these video conferences, whether it's Zoom or Skype, and that's how we're communicating internally within our teams, as well as with our clients. Some of the clients may not have cell phones, so we are actually looking at burner phones to provide them so that we can stay connected. Staying connected is so incredibly important, especially with everything going on.
I had forgotten about that piece of it. The access and availability to the internet and to phones. It's not technically a utility, but it's almost one.
Right.
The ability to get those burner phones, you've got grant money, I guess, put aside for it, or there's just extra fundraising endeavors that have to go into it at the moment?
Well, it's really both. I mean, we have to fundraise, and we are applying for different grants. There are a lot of unplanned expenses to make everything keep going like it should go, and even increasing what we're doing. So we're looking at a number of different sources, but we're always looking as a nonprofit. When we're hit with unplanned expenses, we really have to come up with option B quickly. So that's why we are looking at available grants, which I'll be honest with you, there are some, not as many as we would like to see, and also fundraising. We're actually doing a virtual fundraiser next Tuesday, the 19th, with a local musician, Billy Lawler. And, music heals. And that's why we think it's great to have a music fundraiser. And we hope to bring in some funds to not only burner phones, but some of the equipment that we need, as well as some of the protective, the masks, the sanitizers, the gloves, all of that. So we are going to be doing a virtual fundraiser next Tuesday.
If you give me that link, I'll make sure that we populate it out there.
I'll be glad to provide that to you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it should
Absolutely.
be, it's for a good cause, but it's really with a great musician who a lot of people know from the local community. And he's donating his time and talent because he really believes in helping those people in need. I mean, it's an example of neighbors helping neighbors, right? We all can come together to make a difference, and that's what we're here for.
And that's one of the more challenging things with this pandemic. Like, if we focus back, New Jersey's super resilient. We've gone through 9/11, and we went through a major recession where the bubble affected a lot of people in New York and New Jersey. And then we went through Sandy, and the community comes together really quickly, and we protect our own. But in something like this, where there isn't necessarily an exit strategy, and the jumping into it has been a little difficult, challenging. The ability for people to come together the same way, I've seen a ton of innovation, but I still think you've got people that are scared and are always looking for some way to reach out and to help, but they also might be one of the 30 million that are now unemployed. So what's their other outlet and avenue that they might be able to help to reach out, to continue having that goodwill spirit that helps enrich all of us when we actually get to help the community?
Yeah, and that's why we really think that together, as a community, as neighbors, as friends, as relatives, because if you, at least within my circle, every family at some point has experienced someone, whether in the family or within their friend circle, who has been challenged with substance abuse, addiction, mental illness. So I think that people, to have the opportunity to come together, especially in this very difficult time, I think it gives everyone a chance to make a difference, right? Together we make a difference. And I do want to share another very alarming statistic with you that came out in the Washington Post last week because you
Sure.
had mentioned a little while ago about unemployment. Well, unemployment has a direct impact on mental illness and a direct impact on substance abuse. So with the stats that they published in the Washington Post, as for every 5% that unemployment goes up, there are 4,800 more suicide deaths, and there are 5,200 overdose deaths. Now, that's a 5% unemployment increase. We all know the unemployment has gone up far higher than that. What does that mean? What's happening throughout this country? How can we help? How can we make a difference? And that's what Preferred Behavioral Health Group is doing, because if anyone does feel isolated, alone, afraid, we are here to help them. And we want to make sure that they know we are here to help them.
And I think that's super reassuring, because I don't necessarily know if people necessarily know that that's there for them. Like,
Right.
Working in the field of bankruptcy and foreclosure, we have a lot of clients over the years that when they come to us, it's usually at the last second after the emergency is right on top of them. And here we are, where the emergency was, you're sitting at the end of February and you've got a job, and suddenly you're told, hey, we're furloughing everybody. You're done. And I can't promise or tell you when you're coming back, if you're coming back. People went under the wave really, really quickly with this.
Yes.
And the communication about this resource, people, absolutely, I'm hearing people clamoring that they're vulnerable and they're scared and they don't know what to do. But I don't know if they're necessarily advocating for themselves and expressing their concern to an expert, to people that can aid them. And that's why I thought it was so important to bring you on now, because it feels even more heightened today than it did a month ago, when everyone was just obeying the order and hoping it was going to get better. I don't know if anybody expected this would be going on for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks. And that's accelerated the fear and the concern. So what do we tell people that are sitting in that boat?
So, unfortunately, there has been a stigma associated with mental illness and substance abuse, but we really are trying to get beyond that. These are diseases, just like if one has diabetes, you go and get treated for it. So people should not be afraid to come forward. I know a lot of the people who do come to us, when they come to us, they're lost, they're unraveled, they don't know where to turn, and we get them back on the path. I think that the most important message I have today is that recovery is possible. People have to understand recovery is possible. And we have the resources, we have the compassionate staff, and we have the expertise and support to help. And recovery is possible. And people should they should think of it as any other kind of illness or disease. They would go to their doctor, come for support, come for help, come for treatment. We have 70 different programs. We have so many therapists. So it's a hard message, because again, there has been a stigma, but we have to get beyond that.
I wanted to pivot just a little bit, because we've been mostly talking about adults and the change of job and a change of this environment, but you guys do have youth programs as well. And I think that's something where that's in the cracks now that we're inside, and kids are experiencing this and they're seeing and feeling the stress of their parents. What do we do to help make sure they're getting the help they need as well?
Right, and we have a very proactive children's program, and we have seen an increase in the number of people coming to us. The kids are really experiencing all different levels of stress now of, not being in school. There's a certain level of loneliness. They don't understand what's going on. So the support, assistance, and treatment for children is really, really critical. And, I'm so glad you brought up that point, because, you think, oh, the kids are home, parents are taking care of them. But their whole lives have been turned upside down. And we as adults might be able to process it a little better. I'm not sure, like if I totally grasp how this could possibly happen in this country, but can you imagine a child? One day they're in school, next day they're not. All of a sudden they're not seeing their classmates for the rest of the year. They're not allowed to play with their classmates. So the mental health and wellness and emotional health of children is so critical at this time.
Yeah, and something where asking them if they're okay and trying to help them process it.
Right.
I'll hedge it as this. One of my friends had a situation where her daughter wanted to play with one of the neighbor kids, and it was, Mom, we're just going to go for a bike ride. And when there's 10-year-olds, sure, they went for a bike ride for 10 minutes, and then their distraction kicked in. So she found her daughter sitting on a blanket, socially distant, quote unquote, from a 10-year-old's perspective. She was on a blanket, her friend was on a blanket, but they were 2 feet apart. And 2 months ago, that would have been normal. And now she had to panic and tell her daughter that this scared her. And her daughter said, I know, Mom, like every time I leave the house, you worry that I might die. And when a 10-year-old tells you that, it's a dagger to the heart. But holy shit, that feels like the world we're living in now. And that little crack of panic that's lingering in everybody's head is all the more point of why people need to jump out and get the help that's there that they just might not know about.
Absolutely. And, with children especially, their parents are really providing them with the information on, how this world is so different, right? And that there isn't the old normal. And it's one thing hearing it from a parent, because sometimes kids are like, oh, but it's another thing when they can speak to a professional therapist or professional counselor who can actually present it in a different way that may help the children realize, what's going on. So there's a lot of value in reaching out for professional help.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was that there is a employee assistance program for outreach to help these people also with job skills and to keep them involved in the community. Is that going on right now, or is that something in a modified front as well?
Oh, no, absolutely. No, it is definitely going on. We are really willing and anxious to take on new clients if there's a need. The employee assistance program is targeted at companies to provide this service to their employees. And we have, over the last several weeks, brought in on new companies. And really that is an extra benefit for a corporation to have resources available to help, guide with mental illness, even financial assistance in giving some helpful hints, any types of things. So yes, that's still going on. And on our website, anyone could go in and look up the employee assistance program. And that probably is even more critical today than before COVID-19, because most corporations are not right now all housed in the same location. So it's hard to keep employees just, pumped up, motivated and all that, and answering all their questions, but we can assist with that. And yes, we are 100% full steam ahead on our employee assistance program.
That's outstanding.
Yep.
So if you don't mind, I wanted to shift topics just for a second, and then we'll circle back.
Sure.
So your background was you also were involved with the FoodBank. And
yes.
That is a epic undertaking right now to get food to the underserved that were already struggling. And I know you're not boots on the ground right at the front of it right now, but what do you think they're going through from a logistical perspective to keep things running as normal as possible?
Yeah, and of course, I'm still in touch with so many of the wonderful people over at the FoodBank, and they are. It's amazing what they're doing, because the FoodBank has 300 pantries in the network, and it's all of these pantries that are in local communities that are really assessing and assisting those individuals who are now food insecure. They are making sure, and especially with the children, because as you know, the children who qualified for the free breakfast and free lunch. All of a sudden, they're not in school. And they qualified for that free breakfast and free lunch because their families are lower income. Those children are getting meals every day. We make sure. And, it's so incredibly important, not only to get through this disaster, but just for the overall health of the children and adults to deal with something of this magnitude. They have to feed their bodies to feed their soul. And
Right.
I know that the food bank, which is now Fulfill, is doing an outstanding job in making sure that food are getting to those people in the greatest need.
I was blown away. We were supposed to have an event with Fulfill 3 weeks ago that
Right.
obviously got crushed in the middle of this pandemic. We were going to be at the Blue Claws doing a big event for them
Yes.
because just touring their facility and seeing how much food they move through that facility and how they get it and disperse it out to all of these food banks throughout Monmouth and Ocean County. It's just a massive undertaking. And I'm so impressed with what they do. And since you work there, I knew that you could give us a little bit of insight on that too.
Yeah, no, I'm so proud of the work that they do and the work I did there. And what's most interesting, George, is that we share many of the same clients. Many of the clients that come to us are in that lower income bracket. And it was very important for me to stay connected to the local community and helping those people. So I'm very, very fortunate to have worked not only for Fulfill, but now for Preferred Behavioral Health Group, which is such an outstanding organization that makes a huge difference in the local community. And I think, that's what we're here for, is we're to help others that are having trouble. And right now we have a big situation of trouble, but we're here to make a difference.
And I think you really are making a difference. And I really applaud you and the group for what you're doing to try to make that happen every day. I just wanted to point out, guys, if you're on the chat and you had any questions, by all means, just shout it out in the chat. And while Linda and I are on, we'll be happy to answer those questions. I meant to put something out earlier about that, but we jumped right into it. So sorry. So Linda, my last really big important question is,
yes,
as we start figuring out this rollout of coming back to work, that's going to create a whole new set of questions and anxieties and concerns. How do we do that? And how do you guys support that?
I really wish I knew the answer to that. I think it's going to be something that we all are going to discover as we go through it. There's so many unknowns, but what's most important to us at Preferred Behavioral Health Group is that as we get back to work, we want to make sure that we have facilities that are safe and that people have confidence and there's not a fear. And that's going to take some adaptation. We're looking at installing plexiglass shields, possibly, if there's counseling and there's less than 6 feet distance. We're sort of researching all this now. But the most important thing is that people are able to come to us with a high level of confidence, knowing that they're going to get help and that their safety and health is the most important thing that we can do for our own staff as well as any of our clients.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's amazing when you've got a virtual background like this and somebody can walk in and hand you a note and say,
wow, that is pretty amazing.
That's right. Great. This virtual pigeon thing works out amazing.
Yeah.
There was a question on the chat from Joan Mistro. Hi, Joan. It's so good to see you. The question was, do you have does Preferred Behavioral have a sliding scale in terms of expense in order to help people that can afford your services?
Yes, we work with everyone. So we can, I think the most important thing is if you or anyone you know is interested in our services, the best thing to do is to call our intake number, and then they can connect you with someone who can give you information. But the answer to that is yes. We make sure that people who need help get help, regardless of payment, insurance, and that type of thing. We will do everything possible to get people help. And just if I could share the number, George, do you mind that?
No, absolutely. And I'll put it in the chat after we're done as well.
Okay, so the number is 732-367-4700. And that way you can get connected, get those kinds of questions answered. But the answer is yes, we do sliding scale, and we will work as far as payment.
What would be the big message that we should get out to anybody that's listening now, how they can help themselves, how they can help their friends, their family, anybody that's feeling lost, isolated?
So I think the big message is that with everything going on, people sort of have to understand their own feelings, and there's nothing wrong with feeling lost, confused, anxious, stressed out. But if it gets to the point where one cannot really continue to live a life, a healthy life, then that's the message. You're telling yourself at that point you need help. And again, recovery is possible, whether it's from mental illness, substance abuse, addiction. So it's really listening to yourself. And the most important thing is that if you're not able to lead a healthy and happy life, then come talk to us. It really helps. And then we could determine if additional, treatment assistance is needed. But don't stay lost. Don't stay there. The important thing is come to us. There is help available, and we want to help. And we're here to help. We've been here for over 40 years. We have helped thousands and thousands of people, and we're here for all of you.
There was one more question in the chat, and that was, yes. Are your services limited to Monmouth and Ocean County?
No, they're not limited to Monmouth and Ocean Counties. I mean, that's where most of our locations are, but we do have staff who work in other counties as well.
Great. And Cynthia, thanks for asking that question. And obviously, here we are in a world where everything has gone to Zoom and to telehealth.
Right.
So
right.
Locations become almost irrelevant to a degree right now. And it's one of those weird silver linings that's come out of this is the forced technology that's come upon everybody in order to adapt to this social distancing.
Yes, absolutely. So no, anyone can call that number, and we were more than happy to help out.
That's outstanding. There was something this morning, and I wanted to make sure I could ask it in the right way. I was watching CBS this morning, and they actually had a piece talking about telehealth and mental well-being, and yes. They were talking about specifically frontline workers and essential workers, and effectively that this has been 8 weeks of PTSD that's been thrust upon them as they're seeing people die on a much frequenter basis and dealing with more overwhelming stress than they normally had with the job that they acknowledge they've signed up for, but never could have fathomed it gets to this. What's the message that we want to make sure frontline workers hear the same way? Because we all think they wear capes, and they sometimes trick themselves into believing they wear capes too, to let down that guard and admit their vulnerability. It's a problem, and it's something that your group can be a benefit to. So what's the message for them?
Well, the frontline workers are the heroes, and you're right. It's hard for them to think of anything but being, just there to continue to work. But the message is the same to them as anyone else. If they reach a point where the stress levels are impacting their happiness and impacting their life in negative ways, it's time to talk to someone, and it's time to reach out. And everyone needs a friend. Everyone needs an ear to listen, and everyone may need at some time in their life professional counseling and therapy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we want to encourage people that we have the people to do that. We have a wonderful team, and people will feel better. And then they'll get their happiness back. They'll get the smiles back, and they'll be able to actually do their jobs better if they're able to, talk to people outside of that circle that they're in, because that is so intense and it's so stressful. But they are our heroes. But even heroes need a friend and may need counseling.
I think that's well said. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, Linda, that I didn't go through? Is there a takeaway, or is there extra? Keep going.
Well, I think we've covered a lot. And again, I appreciate the time, and it's always so nice to have a conversation with you, George. I think just to reinforce that, we are right now focused on protecting the most vulnerable in our local community, especially children and seniors, right? We didn't talk much about seniors, but seniors,
right.
They are definitely probably feeling more isolated than most of the rest of us. But we're here to protect the most vulnerable. We're here to provide them with support, assistance, and treatment. And we know that now in this current situation that people are experiencing isolation and despair. We know that it can intensify underlying mental illness as well as substance use issues. And we're here to reach out, and we want them to reach out to us, so we know that we can help them in so many ways. And again, just not to be repetitive, but recovery is possible. Recovery is possible. We have the support system, we have the staff, and we want to make sure that we can make a difference in your lives and that you could lead healthy lives now and going forward, because it's not going to get easier, right? It's probably just going to get tougher for all of us, but we're all here to support each other, and we want to help anyone who needs it.
I think that's a wonderful message. And I want to just remind everybody that's listening, there's always hope. And if you can take a minute and breathe and let the despair just wash past, it's okay. We all feel that sense of loss and overwhelming frustration about what's going on, but don't lose hope. And if you know somebody that's struggling and going through this, all you have to do is send them a link and send them a phone number. So it doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to be the elephant in the room. You just have to help encourage them to reach out for the people that can help get them on the right path. Linda, I'm going to post all of the amazing links from Preferred Behavioral. I have that as a PDF that you shot me before this.
Great.
And with that, I thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been some amazing information.
Yeah.
Guys, don't forget the live music event that'll be next week. I'll make sure to post an event about that as well.
Great.
And I think it's amazing what you guys are doing. And I really, really thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you, George, for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for everyone who's listening in. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right, guys, have a great day. Veitengruber Law will be back live with you on Thursday at 3 o'clock.